Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for today's video. I get to actually share with you today a demonstration on how to work with one of the die sets from A Year of Flowers, which is the new Fleurs collection. Now the flower that I've chosen to actually assemble for you is the Carnation. Now you can see here this is the actual die set for the Carnation, and the reason why I really wanted to share with you this one is because I myself am fairly new to flower making. It was something I only really acquired working with maybe within the last year or maybe about 10 months. So for me, when I saw new flowers coming out and new die sets, I sometimes took a glance and thought, I don't actually know what to do with this, or I don't know how to sort of make it look how it should do when it's fully assembled. And you can see here down the side, you have the two main dies in here, and these are actually the petals. So they look quite different from something you may be familiar with, whereas you can see here in the daffodil, we have a signature petal shape, of course, but a carnation has very intricate detail to it, and this is the way it is created, and that is through different dimensions of shapes. And it's all in the manipulation of the product you're working in. So I'm going to get straight into it. Now, of course, we've got 12 flowers in this kit, so there's tons to work with, and there's so much to show you. But starting off with the ones that maybe look a little bit more advanced is probably the best way to go, because once you've achieved that level, you can really create anything with them. And of course, the other flowers in the kit, some of them are super self-explanatory, but at the same time, they're fun to explore. So it's nice to learn as well as you're crafting. So I'm taking some of the Fleurs wire and I'm gonna chop it in half, which means I've probably got around about 7 inch wire here. And with my pliers, I'm just gonna create a hook on the end, okay? So I've created a hook, and you can see there, maybe ever so slightly, at the top there it's slightly wider, and that's the hook at the top of my wire. Now this acts as a stopper, so if you've made flowers before, you might be quite familiar with this, but if it's something new to you, like it was to me, then this is a great point to learn from. So we've got our stem here ready to go. Now with those dies, I've gone into some foam and cut these out. Now the two separate dies I've got here for you, you can see I've cut them in a slightly off-white shade, and that's because then I can add colour to these and mix it in with any colour you sort of wish, really, because carnations have like a bleed going into them. They're a slightly different petal in comparison to anything really that you would find in your garden. So what I'm going to do is start with the biggest one. And when I say the biggest one, it's the one that has the most grooves in it. Now if I hold this against my hand, you can see here as we go down, we have that little teeth cut into this. Now this is to add manipulation and be able to sort of pleat these together, and allows for a bit more room and give. What I'm going to start doing with is just roll it up like this. So we've got it all together. You can see there the whole thing is together, and I'm just going to scrunch it ever so slightly like that with my fingers at the tip, and that's just going to ruffle all the edges up. And the thing is, with just the heat from your hand with the foam, it already starts to take that temperature on, and that's what allows it to become quite moldable, if you like, and it allows it to sort of take to any shape that you want to put it in. So I'm using my Kit and Caboodle cordless glue gun for this. I'm going to add some of the glue actually to that stem, and especially to the loop that we created at the top. Okay, and I'm working, here we are to the edge, so we've sort of made a flag. So I've stuck it down to one side with the flat edge at the bottom, and then whilst that glue's still hot, I'm just going to fold it over, so we've got ourselves like a little flag here. And what I'm going to do is then take my glue, and instead of starting from the center, I'm going to move my way out a little bit, okay? So we've got some glue here, and I'm just going to fold it like that. So we've created like a little pleat there, and then we're going to work again in the same way. And what I'm essentially doing here is making sort of conical flower petal shapes, which means that every single time you do this, the result will be different, meaning that if you make an assortment of flowers, you're going to get variety, and you're going to ensure that no two look the same. And that's why I love to use foam with this, because whichever way you scrunch it or heat it, they always act in their own way, and that is that they're always different. So I'm taking some of the hot glue again, and I'm just going to loop that round. So you can see here, it looks a little bit bizarre at the minute, but then what I'm going to do is take a little bit more glue, fold that in at the bottom, and then I'm just going to start sort of nip the base of this together. And what that's going to do is allow me to start to get that flower that bursts out. So I'm layering these up, I'm going to pinch it really nice and tight here. Okay, and what the hot glue is doing, and I would always recommend using hot glue, especially the cordless glue gun, because it gets at the perfect temperature for your foam, so it will not burn the foam. Because if you're using a corded glue gun, there is the ability to burn this material you're working on, so it gets at the right temperature. and the glue is perfect as it sets super quick. So that's the first layer of our petals that we have here. Now the second one, we're going to use the same exact die cut. So we have the two of those, remember, so we've got the one that's got slightly smaller areas to it, but we're using the larger one. And I'm going to roll this up like this, just in my hands, and then the tips of it, where we've got the frilled edge, I'm going to scrunch it all together. Okay, and I'm just literally rubbing it back and forth like that. And it actually creates heat. You can feel the heat coming off it with friction. And what that's doing is really making these sort of look like old withered tissue. But when you've added colour to them, they just look beautiful. So I'm actually not going to stick it straight to my petal. I'm going to add glue onto here, straight onto the foam, and I'm going to start pleating it together. So you can see here, as I've been actually adding the glue, with those pleats, as you would with anything pleated, it starts to create a rounded effect because we're only pinching it at one side. So I'm going to take some more glue again, pleat it over, just so it meets and touches either side of that glue, and then I'm going to actually connect the two ends together. Now this is something I've never done with Fleurs, so it was new for me, but it was also really exciting because I like to try the things that are new, things that I can create different effects with. So you can see there, we've got the petals all formed in a sort of cone shape. Now, if I take the actual stem, poke it through the middle of these, then what I'm going to do is add some hot glue to the original petal we glued down, slide this up, and I'm just going to glue it onto it and nip it really tight, just like that. Okay, and then these pleats that we have that are hanging out then gives you the opportunity to add the glue to them and loop them over wherever you think looks best. So of course, as you're creating your flower, you can mold it and shape it, think of different ways where you think, oh, it needs a bit extra there, or we need another petal there. And of course, on this die set as well, you can see you do have individual petals. Now, if there was a space where you thought, oh, there's a gap there, I don't think I need another full strip though, just cut the individual ones and stick them in wherever that you think looks best. So what I'm going to do is add one last one, and that's of the smaller big strip that we've got. Again, I'm just going to fold it up, scrunch it in my hands, okay, and then I'm going to do the same process really quickly, add in my glue. So I'm going to work my way around, pleating it together. And the thing as well with the hot glue is I like that it doesn't create mess. With foam, it likes to only adhere to certain surfaces or certain glues, and hot glue is perfect for that. So you can see I've gone around all the edges of this one with my hot glue. I'm just going to add a little bit more here onto that sort of pleated area, bring it together, and we've created a full round of petals there. So you can see as I then, and I love the obscurity of these, that no side looks the same. It's not a perfect flower because carnations, when you look at them, they look like a ruffle of fabric that's sort of bursting out. So I'm going to take the center again through this one and pop some of that hot glue around the base of the ones we've already made. So pushing it right up to the edge allows me to then get a really strong base at the bottom of this. So I'm going to take those little pleats there, so you can see I've got it on white here, but if I put my hand, you can see these little pleats. If I add a little bit of glue and then sort of fold these in like that, take the other side, fold that in, we can then actually get that carnation shape really starting to take form. And then you can go around and take all of the petals and then start to shape them. You can even just sort of mold them with your fingers, change the shapes as you desire really with these. Okay, so I'm going to add a tiny bit more glue just at the edge. That's going to grip it all in quite nicely. And then what I'm actually going to do is, from when I cut all of these dies, I was left over with, of course, the negative, which is what's left when you're die cutting. So I'm going to take some scissors to this and snip out this little section I have here. And I'm going to take off all these teeth. And this is just a personal choice. It's not something you have to do, but it means that I can get a little bit more sort of, I don't know, bulk at the bottom of this flower to add the calyx on. So what I'm going to do is take some hot glue to the stem, and then this strip of foam, I'm going to place it down here at the bottom and just fold it over like that, and that foam is now glued onto that stem. Now as I just spiral this round a little bit, I'm only going to do it a couple of laps like that, and then what I can do is tear this away like that, and then I'm going to glue this on. So I've created like a base of the flower, if you like, underneath here. Okay, so you can now see that our carnation is coming to life. You can see there when you look from the top, it has got that signature carnation ruffle. And then the dye that I'm going to work with next on this kit, this one here, and you can see this is the base of the calyx that creates that little bud that a carnation stems from. So adding hot glue to the back of this, I'm then going to take it straight to the flower here and then press it up against the flower and that stem that I've just created. Now if you look at pictures of a carnation, or you already have some carnations at home, you'll see that the base of them are really thick. With a lot of flowers, the bud becomes the flower, but with this one, the bud sort of stays underneath it and it still seems quite strong. So I'm going to keep going around adding my hot glue to each element of this until I've covered the entire base of this flower. Okay, I'm going to add one more. Here we go. And I'm just covering every gap. So I can see now I've met where I first started. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just snip that spare piece off there, like that. And then as I go around, I can see there's a slight opening here. I've got a little bit of the white there that channels down into the green. So what I'm going to do with that spare one is then I'm just going to take my hot glue again and just place that over there. So then you can sort of just create layers in which way ever you desire. Okay, and then the last step for the top of the flower, where we've got all of this roll of the green and the white, taking some of that hot glue, I'm going to squeeze it down into the center, and then as you nip all of this together really tightly at the bottom and just squidge it all together, the foam molds and sets with the heat. So you can see there, as you look from the side, you then have your carnation with the bud that's molded at the bottom, and you can see how perfect is that. It looks absolutely beautiful. Now before we add anything else to this, we're going to colour it, okay? Now the colouring process is something you can do before you assemble flowers or once they're assembled, but the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to use some ink sprays, okay? So I've got a tray here which I'm going to treat as a sort of a spraying booth, and I take some of my Cadence sprays for this one, and I'm using the shade Fuchsia, okay? So all I'm going to do is I've got my flower here. You can see I've got all the beautiful petals sticking out. I'm just shaping it still ever so slightly until I'm sort of happy with it. There we go. And then all of that ink, add a bit of water into there. All of that ink is now sat in the base of this tray. So what I'm going to do is dip the flower into it. So I'm going to work my way around, and all of the tips of those petals are now going in that really highly pigmented ink. And you'll notice the way that a carnation is coloured is it bleeds from the tip outwards. So you've got all the strength and the sort of deepness of the colours at the tip of the petal, and they sort of fade out, which can be the opposite for flowers. Sometimes the strength of the colour starts in the centre and it fades out towards the edge. So you can see there we've sort of got tips on the edge, and then as I take just a plain water spray, I'm then going to add water to this, and all of that ink then instantly bleeds into the petals. I hold that over my ink tray. I'm going to let any excess water just drip off there, and then as you spray it, more of the ink runs, and then I'm just going to tap it off ever so slightly. There we go, and then you can see how beautiful is that. If I take this tray away, I've got a tissue here just to wipe up any excess water or anything on my surface. You can see that flower is absolutely beautifully coloured. Now if I just, have I got something, I've got a bin down here actually. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this into a bin and swirl it. So I've just swirled it like this in my hands and spun it, okay? So I'm just spinning it round, and what that will do is it takes like a gravitational pull around the edge, like the G-force gets any excess water and ink off, and you can see you're then left with a beautifully coloured carnation. And the last step, I'm going to add some petals, leaves to the edges. So the leaves for these ones, they're like a large, really large water drop. So I'm going to take some of my hot glue, just in the base of that, and then go around the stem. I'm just going to pinch them together, okay, like that. Take another one here and pinch that together as well with some hot glue on there. Got two for this one. And you can add as many as you wish. You'll notice on carnations they sort of always vary, especially if you've got a bunch of them, or you might not want to put any leaves on there at all. Maybe you're just using the flower to decorate something. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to add just 3 on here, like that. And then I do have some other carnations that I'm going to show you as well. So different colorways in which you can create these. You can see there how stunning these actually look. And you can see I've got a really bright fuchsia one, of course, which is the one that we've just done. If you look from the top there, you can see how delicately the colour just bleeds into it. So I hope you can see all of that, because they really are just absolutely gorgeous. And the thing is, they always look different. So you can see from the side, you've got the base of the flower beautifully covering all of those petals. But that's how you can create your carnation. Now, there's so many different colorways of carnations. And of course, you can use your pastels for this. You can use inks, you can use sprays or spritzers, whatever you want to use. But that's such an easy way, because we've created a realistic blend of color on that with no skill required. So I'm not a strong colorist. I'm not very confident with coloring, but spritzing a bottle and dipping a flower in is something I definitely can do. So it's something I know that you'll be able to do as well and have some fun with it, and try different colors, mix different inks together, have rainbow effects. Of course, take them into whatever dimension you wish to craft with them. So there's tons that we can create, and that's just one set of 12 that you're going to get in this collection. So there's tons to work with. So remember, you've got your daffodils, your gladioli, your daisies, your aster, delphiniums. There's so many to work with, but that really is just a sort of small taste as to what you can do. So do check out this collection. It's airing in January on Create and Craft, so do check that out. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I shall see you later.